All right, ladies and gentlemen, one and all, thank you so much for joining in on another Meet the Artist series. I'm your host, Adam Riviere, and today I have a Tycoon percussion artist, my friend, your friend, Eric Selby. Eric, how you been?
Hey Adam, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
No, of course. It's like I appreciate you, having the time. As you said earlier, I'm your fourth Zoom call today.
You're my fourth, but most important, Adam. Most important.
I'll take that. Thank you, my friend.
Sure.
So it's like, so how's your world been? It's like I've been seeing that Texas is becoming like a frozen tundra and what have you. So it's
Yeah.
like
You know what? Well, I'm based in the DC area,
I'm DC. Oh, so
so
sorry.
that's okay. But you know what? We're getting snow and ice today, and I think it's supposed to be icy all day long. So
Uh,
my plans to go out have been go on the kibosh, but that keeps me here, and hopefully it'll force me to practice more than I was planning to in the first place.
yeah, I think just it was like if it wasn't the pandemic and now we've got this going against us, right?
Right? I mean, gosh, I thought 2021 was going to be a whole new adventure, and I guess it is. It has been a whole new adventure. So who knew? Who knew?
I was like, yeah, but it just yeah. I mean, the excitement never stops, right? And if anything, this tells you is like what else can we do to adapt to keep ourselves entertained one way or another, right?
Adapt or die, brother. Adapt or die.
And speaking of adapting, what's some of the like recent action going on in your world? What's been going on?
Well, it's I've had an interesting time for the past year. A lot of my musical associates since the beginning of COVID have had a tough time. For different reasons. A lot of them are full timers, and I am, thankfully right now I wasn't a full timer. Pretty close to. I feel like I have two full time jobs. I have the day job, and I have my music career as well. But a lot of those folks were having a tough time, and I was making a record that had
Hmm.
just been completed in March of 2020. And I'm like, okay, what do I do with this? And I had some conversations with different advisors, if you will, and like, hey, you probably don't want to put this thing out. And right now, because everything was going into lockdown at that point. And when I made the record that I made, that's available on iTunes, it's called Do Baby. And
Nice.
when I made that record, I really made it for myself, and I didn't make it
Oh,
to. I made it, I'm a drummer by trade, and unless you're Ringo, you're really not the front guy. So I was for my entire career, I've always been, the drummer or producing a record. So this was my opportunity to step out, and it really wasn't to step out to be anything like a front man. It was just to do a creative project for myself, really to entertain myself and to say I made a record. Anyway, I went ahead because of that reason. I said, it doesn't really matter if it gets put out, because it's a personal creative project, and it was released on April 17th of 2020. And I thought, it would sort of drop into the black hole of oblivion, but I'd have plenty of CDs to make coasters for in my house. But surprisingly, and I'm not sure if it was the timing, because other folks weren't putting music out. I don't know what the reason was exactly, but the record hit. The radio stations picked it up, and it
yeah.
became Roots Music Report, which certainly isn't Billboard, but I'm not Beyonce, and Roots Music Report claimed that record to be in the top, their best of for 2020, which I really appreciate. And I have, because of that success, I started working on another record for two reasons: because that first one was successful, and secondly, because of COVID, I had a little bit more time on my hands. And right now, this week, in fact, singles from the last record are in the top 50, and a single from the upcoming record is in the top 50. So I have two different projects of my own solo work that are on the charts, which I think are, I appreciate, and I'm really thankful for the support folks have given me, and the radio stations for spinning the record.
Wow, that's awesome. I was like, yeah, he says like, yeah, even if it isn't Billboard, I think anytime there's recognition for the work and the appreciation for what you do at any level, like I don't know how you are as a musician, but even some of my, other, Tycoon family and other musicians, sometimes just getting that one person in the audience to stomp their foot or just kind of bob their head is usually all you need. But it seems like that's some
Right.
awesome, but that what you did, that's an awesome achievement, and good on you, man. That sounds awesome. I look forward to checking it out.
Thank you.
I says like, like you, I'm sure, you've been, idle enough, even though when we're just stuck at home, we find ways or somehow we get busier, right? So with everything going on, it's like besides, pandemic and now, like I said, being, where you are in Virginia, he's like you're closer to the DC area, and now you're dealing with, unfortunately, like, I'm in Indiana. We've been blessed to get, well, not blessed because our city dropped the ball on shoveling this stuff, but it's powder.
Right.
That's easy to deal with. We've had our share and forever of ice, and now you're dealing with that. So have you been kind of still stuck at home and trying like, okay, is there something else I've been wanting to do creatively? Like what's been some of your recent like motivations or projects, or just, or when you're stuck at home, what's some of the stuff that guides you to do something or
Well,
anything?
well, I'm, like I said, I'm a drummer and percussionist by trade, and that is, what I love, what I've always loved since I was 9 years old. But I think of myself as a musician first and drummer second. There are plenty of drummers out there. I mean, Adam, you know that there's tons of drummers
Yeah,
out there,
yeah.
tons of percussion, right? And I have found with huge respect to all of them that my favorite drummers were the drummers that approached their music as a musician. They were musicians that drummed rather than they were drummers. So I've always approached or tried to approach being a percussionist and drummer as being a musician. And with that said, I've tried to keep the melodic end of our industry in on my back burner. So I play guitar, so at night, I truly, I sit around and play guitar. It's how I wrote the songs for both of these records, was really just, hanging out with my daughters every night. They're probably so, it's so funny. Side note, I just played a recent track that I'm working on for my daughter. I'm like, I'm all excited. Like, listen how this sounds. And I realized she's heard this song 120 times, because you're home working it, and you're workshopping it yourself. But to answer your question, what I have found time in this challenging time is what I found time to do more of is play guitar and write songs and write lyrics, and some of it's gobbledygook, and some of it will never see the light of day as far as the public is concerned. But for me, it isn't that I can't imagine every Picasso was a Picasso. I have to believe that he workshopped stuff, and I'm certainly not comparing myself to that, because I'm not that at all. But the idea is that for me, I write 30 songs and let you hear one. So I've used this time creatively, and try to be as effective and proactive and productive as I can. I mean, otherwise, we're just hanging out doing nothing, and I don't want to do that either.
Yeah. Yeah. The joys of idle hands is even worse for a percussionist, right?
Right, for real. Yeah.
Yeah. And thank you for finding the old adage or that old joke is like, who do you call, it was like, yeah, what do you call a person that hangs out with a bunch of musicians?
The
A
drummer.
drummer.
You're
Yeah.
right, right.
Yeah. Yeah. One of
And then
one of the one of the
and
infamous slams.
I know, right, right. If I've heard one drummer joke, I've heard 1,000 drummer jokes, and sadly, probably 50% of them are kind of accurate. Like, what? I know that guy. And the other thing, with this time is that before, pre-COVID, we were I don't know about you, but, I was playing clubs, playing venues, playing bars. I get the opportunity to play with different genres. So I play in projects that are blues bands. I play in a psychedelic band.
Nice.
As a drummer, and then I also get a chance to play as a percussionist, session work as a percussionist, session work, percussionist with a good buddy of mine. His name is Don Chapman. And with COVID, the whole bar scene, if you will, the venue scene is closed
Mhm.
down. But Don and I, and I'll give a shout out to Don. He was he's the guitar player on many of my songs, and he has played with Rick Roberts and Larry Burnett from Firefall, and he also has shared the stage with America.
Oh,
But he
yeah,
lives
nice.
nearby right now, and he has brought me on. We work together a lot, and we played wineries. And what's been cool about playing
Mm.
wineries during this COVID time is, number one, you keep working, which I love. Number two, there's been a great weather scene in the fall. It's been warm. It hasn't been, so we've been playing outside a lot. And the few wineries we play, whenever we're inside, we're very distanced, very social distance. It's very,
Cool.
we play it very smartly. So I've been able to keep on working with my project with Don and another fellow by the name of Dean Kern, playing percussion, playing djembe and cajon and all kinds of noisemakers and rattlers. And it's been actually eye-opening for me as a drummer and a musician to play with these fantastic guitar players, and also to really focus on being a percussionist, which being a percussionist isn't being a drummer. It's a different,
Yeah.
it's similar. I mean, you have to have pocket, right? But there's a different mindset, and it's helped me again. Everything you do in music hopefully makes you a better musician, and I think being a percussionist for this project does as well.
Oh, awesome. And you mentioned just to where even for yourself, like you traveled outside your comfort zone on, like picking up guitars. As or like you said, you're a percussion. I did the same thing because I was doing it for, to develop as a musician, but also how to talk to guitarists. Because there's just like moments you're trying to communicate a breath or an air or a feel, and it's just like, okay, I can't really explain to you because we're just, it's like somebody speaking Gaelic and somebody speaking Mandarin. They're
Sure.
probably not going to be able to really find common ground as to understand one another. Um, but when you kind of learn some of the basics, you're able to present and connect and also improve yourself as a musician. Besides guitar, is there anything else that you studied, or is there one that you tried to do that was that was probably like your most challenging, or what was your most challenging instrument, even if it is percussion, like, but outside of your general comfort zone as a drummer percussionist?
Well, I think for me, the first I started playing drums at 9, but before that, I grew up in a musical family, and it was insistent from my mother that you gotta play piano first
Yep,
off,
gotta do
right?
piano.
So it's funny. Piano was my first instrument. In fact, here I'll lean back. My weighted key
Yes.
piano is back there. Electric piano is back there. But piano was my first instrument, but that's probably the one that I find the most challenging, just because I don't probably more than anything because I don't spend enough time on it.
Hmm.
I spend most of my time at the drum kit. Number two, I spent I'm playing percussion, and number three, I'm playing guitar. So when I get to the piano, I'm like, oh, I gotta play piano. I feel like I'm starting from scratch again. Over rinse, lather, repeat. So I other than that, I'm trying to think. I really haven't played many other instruments other than piano, guitar, and drums. Those are my main. Saturday, you'll appreciate this, man. Saturday, I'm going in the studio and with my producer. His name is Marco Del Mar. Great producer, great guy. He's produced all my releases, and I'm going to go in. It's the last song on the record that we're going to put out mid-year this year, and I'm going to go in and play guitar, then I think sing a scratch, then play drums, and then I have I've put together the things my percussion. I'm playing udu, and I'm playing djembe, and then I'll come back and we're going to try to do everything except for the real vocals, right? All in one day, and not to rush it, but I just, I feel like it can be done. So maybe that's being too ambitious, or maybe too much of a jack of all trades kind of thing. But hey, I'm cheap labor for myself, and I can I don't have to pay myself union fees, and we're going to go in and not knock out a song in theory, I hope, in reality, on Saturday. With by the time we walk out of there, we'll have 75 to 80% of it done.
That sounds like a productive day and a very busy one, but a fun
Oh,
one.
yeah. Oh, I, dude, I can't. I love it. I love playing live. But I equally love being in the studio. There's something creative about it, and I'm a huge fan of live work. But just listening to Sergeant Pepper, and listening to Smile from Brian Wilson, and listening to some of these just amazingly produced records. I always look at production, or even like the percussion tracks. It, to me, the production, the cool fun part of producing a record, not just like recording things, but actually producing it, is as important as any other instrument to me. It's not just a matter of just tracking stuff and track and master. I want to make it creative. We're in the studio, make it cool.
Yeah, and of course, like you said, but you never want to, because we are our own worst critics, our own worst enemy. So you don't want to overproduce, or it's like you want to enjoy that energy. It's like, do you ever find yourself, or do you ever find yourself in that position, or what do you do to practice just to avoid, trying to overly perfect something and just kind of enjoy the ride, like, when it immediately happens, and not overthink it? What's some of your process when you go into the studio doing that stuff?
You know what? That's a great question. I think the answer to that is for me. Everyone has their own
Yeah.
thing. I think is finding um, the right producer, finding the right
Hmm.
person, and that person needs to, just sort of get you, get you personally, but get your music. Like, they don't have to like it, but they get it.
Yeah.
It's really it's a plus if they like it. Also, they have to finding that producer that speaks your vernacular. Like,
Mm.
you look, I'm after saying, "Oh, I'm a musician, not a drummer." The reality is, I'm not a theory guy,
Mm.
and I can look at Marco, the producer, Marco Del Mar, and say, "No, no, no, I want him to go woo, 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 boop, 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 boop," and he'll understand what I'm. He just understands my nincompoopness chatter, and all of a sudden he makes it sound exactly what I just completely didn't explain properly, but that's exactly what I wanted. And finding someone who sort of talks your nonsense, just I think that's important. And finding a producer, and it could be yourself if you're the producer, but usually it's harder if you're the producer and the musician. Finding a producer, like Marco, that will say no, like, enough, dude, enough. You've done enough. Or say, hey, you haven't done enough. It's not done yet. There's a time to let things marinate more, and there's a time to pull some ingredients out to to communicate the song the way the song should be communicated, I think. And I think so as a long answer to saying, find the right producer that will tell you it's enough. Because sometimes you get all wrapped up in how, your self-indulgent, self-important music. Like, oh, you don't know what, I'm delivering Yes is Fragile, and they're like, no, you're not, dude. So I think, finding the right, not even just the right producer, also the right musicians. The musicians who, you can grab all kinds of guitar players. There's, just like drummers, 1,000 guitar players in every city, and just finding the right people that support your music and build up. Your songs can be really simplistic, but if you have the right people. I had the luxury of having, Don Chapman, I mentioned, Billy Thompson, Miles Gannett, just some great players who just really just unleashed on these songs and made them so much more than they are.
Yeah, it looks like Don visited and gave you a thumbs up, so he's sending you some love.
Ah, yeah, awesome. Yeah, great guy, great musician. He's, I can't say enough about him, and he would request that I do.
It's like, since you're here and while I'm
Yeah,
watching, please.
right. Enough about me. How do you like my shirt?
No, that's awesome. Like, oh, and we have one of our Tycoon brothers. He's asking. He had a question and concerns of adding color to a song, and which, as you know, and even in musician speak or even studio speak, it's kind of like when you hear somebody's like, "I need more warmth." I was like, "Okay, well, what's warmth to you?" But in terms of just straightforward adding color to a song, especially as a percussionist, that's pretty much our joys. But for you, what's your approach on, or more or less the art of adding color to a song?
Well, I think adding color to a song is two things come to mind, and I guess it's perfect that we're talking because one of them is percussion, and the other is proper production. I love stuff, noisemakers and guitar playing backwards and all that. Early Beatles or mid Beatles revolver sound. I love that stuff, but I always save, which is probably the right thing to do anyway. I always save percussion day for pretty much last. And the reason it's last to me is that it flavors the sound of the song. It gives the vibe of the song. It pushes the song when the song needs to be pushed, and it also pulls it back a little bit. You can play an egg shaker, right? Something as simple as an egg shaker, and it sounds like it's pushing in the chorus. But if you just like change the vibe of, it's still the same tempo, right? So that click's never wrong, right? So you're still playing the
Yeah.
click, but just relax, maybe play behind the beat a little bit during the verses. It changes everything. And I think picking the correct percussion, is important. Uh, congas may be perfect for one song and could just kill another. Like pick the right stuff. So there's sometimes where you need a cacophony of percussion, and sometimes you need very little. I out of the two records I've made, only one song doesn't have percussion, and the only reason that doesn't have percussion is because I double drummed. I did
Hmm.
it's a song called Orbit, and it's out right now. In fact, it's heading to radio stations in a few weeks, and
Sweet.
it features Don on guitar, and it features Mara Ross on bassoon. I have a bassoonist playing a solo, and but what I did double drumming where I'm from DC, so I did a sort of a go-go beat, a full
Okay.
full drum kit go-go beat, but then I on top of it, Marco and I laid down a sort of a sweet brush sound. And like, you know what? That's covering what I need. It doesn't, if you add any more percussion, it's going to get confusing to the listener, and your ear will go to that and not to what's important, which is the song. But with the exception of that one tune, every song has percussion and it has different stuff. Like I mentioned, I'm playing udu, or planning to play udu on Saturday. I'm gonna have I'm gonna have the cajon and
Yeah.
bongos, and I'm gonna and cowbells. I mean, it's also necessary.
Heck yeah. It's just like life. Life always needs more cowbell, and definitely, you can't have strength without the cajon. And it's like, and such a beauty you got back there. Been seeing just the burl and just the wood on that is like nice and
Oh,
shiny in your background.
I
Love
love
that
it.
thing.
I love
Awesome.
the cajon, and that cajon. I bring a cajon with me to all of my gigs with Don, um, and I usually play djembe. I usually play the Tycoon djembe for most of the songs. But when there's certain songs where the cajon is just perfect, and when he and I play, we're a duo. So I'm percussion, he's guitar, and you and I have talked about this,
Hmm.
a few weeks ago. It's important for me to have some bottom end because we're playing as a
Hmm.
duo, and the cajon adds the perfect bottom end without being a bass player. So you
Hmm.
or having a bass drum there, so that the cajon that you see back there will be on my next a gig in a couple of weeks with Don.
Sweet.
Yep.
Now thank you so much for sharing everything about, like, your projects and working with Don. Don, we love you. I don't know you, but you're awesome. I definitely know America, uh, and all their fun projects. And oh, got another question from a Tycoon friend. Oh, excellent question. What is your take on the relation of percussion and drummer on how they have a secret language to each other? That's a fun
Wow,
one.
that's a broad question. I
It's
actually,
broad, but definitely a fun one though.
yeah, yeah, this is going to answer the question, but by not answering the question at first. And I'm going to talk about the click track
Hmm.
because as a drummer and a percussionist, you know, I know that, I think I mentioned, the click never lies, right?
Yeah.
And I think with a lot of folks, unless you have the incredible innate internal rhythm, so you have to learn the click track, you have to learn how, and some people, they battle with it until the day they put it all away. And I had an epiphany with the click track. And the moment I had this epiphany, everything changed. And I do a decent amount of session work in the DC area, and I attribute the work that I get to this epiphany day. And I was always like trying to stay with the click. I was just finding that I was dropping behind the click or speeding up and having to come, you have to come back and doing that kind of thing. And the moment I approached the click as as a percussionist. The click is a percussionist. That's all it is. It's a percussionist. So when I'm drumming, it's a percussionist playing cowbell. They're playing to me. I'm not playing to it. You know. So that helped me be a better drummer, a more on drummer to click, and a better session drummer as a someone playing the drum kit. With that said, when I play to a click as a percussionist, I think of it as the drummer. It's not just, oh, I have to make sure I'm on the click. I make sure I'm on the click. I'm like, oh, the drummer's the bass drum's got me. He's playing, he or she's playing four on the floor. So I'm just playing congas to someone keeping four on the floor to me. So I have, with the records I put out for my solo stuff, and really for other people too. Um, I've had the unique opportunity, because I play both, to play both. So I don't often play with a percussionist unless we're playing live, and then there's sort of a different mindset. You're a little bit more free, and you can push and push each other and drag each other and have fun with each other. In the studio, it's been more, I'm playing to my own playing, so it's been a different kind of mindset. But both ways, it's been fun. I just played Bowron on
Nice.
in a session about a month ago. We have. I'm not sure if Tycoon even makes Bowrons, but we have to
Yeah, they do.
talk. Oh, good to know. Good to know. I didn't even know that. So,
Yeah.
so maybe I need to hit you up then, brother.
Oh yeah, it's just like yeah, and luckily it's just like that's why, not to interrupt on this, like yeah, I
No, go
that's
ahead.
why I love Tycoon is they're the ultimate R&D guy. Preacher, I don't know if you ever got the chance to meet him
No,
at one
no,
of the
no. I
NAMs.
haven't.
Oh,
I haven't.
he's magic. He's a wonderful human being. Because originally their tipper was like really small, and I'm got the epitome of I don't know how your hand, but I got percussion hands. It's where my palms are huge, and my fingers are not long, but they're kind of stuff. Yeah, so you feel me,
Yeah.
and I told him, I was like, dude, like, and I gave him like a tipper I got that a friend of mine like giving because I've been playing Irish music for a while, and I had like these nice like custom made tippers. I'm like, dude, it
Right.
needs to be this long. And the following NAM, he improved the tipper. It's longer
Oh,
and
cool.
and great balance. So it'll be good if you're right-handed or a southpaw. For any millennial, southpaw means left-handed, and and so and also it's great the way it's balanced and even the weight. And because I can't remember if they're using their Siam oak or like their own like version of like Paduke, but it's not heavy, but it's not really light either, and it's great for doing either the either the traditional like the carry technique or the had a brain fart with the other one to where it's just been like the top end like holding.
Right.
So it's actually well balanced for both styles if you
Cool.
want to. So it's good. So back to your Balron story.
Yeah, no, no, really wasn't even the story. It was more just like being a percussion player playing all kinds of different stuff. So, within that week, I played Balron, congas, djembe, bells, whatever. But I'm going to hit you up on that tipper because, I guess, I'm not, a master um, Balron player. I'm a player, and I'm always in search of the perfect tipper, and for all of you out there who don't know what tipper is, the stick that people are like,
And
what the hell's a tipper?
it's just the sexy way of just saying, yeah, the stick that the Balram players use. And I said, because I did a video not that long ago, pretty much like just discussing the joys and the magic of the Balram, and even like the history of it. It's like, oh, there we go. And so yeah, it's like even the word Balram was pretty much, that word comes from like having an upset stomach. It's making a low rumbly sound of like a Balram, like a dull drum. So
Huh,
that's one of the cases of why it's called a Balrog, because it's a medical reference.
interesting.
Yeah, no, it's a really cool trip. But yeah, the stick, or like, yeah, the tipper, and it's like, yeah, I own about like 4 or 5 different built tippers. Like they're all different shapes and sizes. And I even
You're a
learned,
playa.
yeah, and even during the
You're a
pandemic,
Celtic playa.
even learned how to make the ones, like getting a bunch of the bamboo skewers
Right,
and do,
right,
yeah, so like what was the sticks called back in the day? Hot rods. So
right.
pretty
Yeah,
much
yeah,
turning that into a tipper.
yeah, yeah. I've actually, I had an old beat up, it's hot rods at times. After a while, they aren't really usable. And I actually did the deal where I cut them to try it out as a tipper. It wasn't really it was a little too thick, for me to
Yeah,
use.
yeah, they're
I was so used to the smaller tippers,
mhm.
but yeah, but it was a cool idea. I know a lot of people use different things to play the Balron. So to each his own, as they say.
Oh yeah, I know. I found my nose again. West Limerick is the top end style, or it's like top
Ah,
heavy, to where it's more of like the modern style, to where the carry technique, whereas we hold it in the middle. And again, we're the millennials, I tell them, like, yeah, you're gonna hold it like you're holding a mercury thermometer, and you're trying to get the mercury at the bottom. It's like, yes,
right.
for us to, back in the good old days, to know if you were sick, we had to put the most intense poison in your mouth to know if you're running a temperature. And in order to get the bottom, you had to do that. So when I have anybody that's like me, like a Gen X or older, real easy. They're like, oh yeah, I remember that. And kids are like, what? Like it's
Right, right, right.
ours are electronic. You just press a button and there you go. It's just like, no, it's like you got to do this. So I had to come up with some other analogy for to know what to do. And at this point, since we're at like the halfway point, I want to take a breather for a Hal Leonard shout out. For those who are new to watching, Hal Leonard is the distributor here in the States for Tycoon Percussion, and they want to give recognition to an area in Virginia. It's like, and I just found the shop. It's called Shenandoah Music Incorporated. They're in Winchester, Virginia, is where they're located. So I don't know how far away that is from your world, Eric. So
Oh,
now I'm
not
gonna.
too far at all. Not too far at all. I would say probably about an hour from me.
Okay, right on. So yeah, so let me share the screen so everybody can see how to get themselves there, and you can still see the beautiful faces that both Eric and I have. So yeah, so that's Shenandoah Music Inc. So it's like a shenmusicstore.com. That just kind of sounds cool. Just the fact of shenmusicstore.com. Real nice and plentiful there. So yeah, especially if there's ever a time to really boost your creativity and also to support local businesses, this is definitely, still the best time, given that, be it a pandemic or a winter ice storm. So again, Hal Leonard's, showing some love, for local music stores, and this one, or for this interview, is Shenandoah Music Incorporated. So, all right, and back to Eric. All
Yeah.
right, so just like in music, the best place to start is the beginning. So how did it start for you? What intrigued you? Or again, like, we're in like in the same bracket of, when we were a kid, we're being forced to play piano as a child, whether we want to or not. But
Right.
what guided you to be a percussionist more so than being, guitar or the French horn? What made you choose percussion?
Well, I'm the youngest of five sons, and my mother was the church organist, always was the church organist. So music was big time in our house. But by the time I came along, after having four older brothers, there was one that already was killer on the piano, one that was two that were killer on guitar, so one grabbed the bass. And when I came along, they needed a drummer. So by the time I was old enough, I started piano probably like every most kids like seven or something. But by the time I was nine, um, I was intrigued by Ringo, and Yellow Submarine, and all that stuff was so exciting to me. And my brothers needed a drummer, so I was down. And um, we played Beatles songs and songs that were hip in the '70s, and that evolution. I never really. I mean, I always kind of thought, gosh, it would be cool to have a career in music or a career as a
Hmm.
drummer. Um, didn't really think I was going to evolve that way, but I never stopped playing. And when friends moved on to other projects or went to school or whatever, I did those projects and moved on too, but I never stopped playing. So I think the reason what started me on drums is simply because my brothers needed a drummer, and number two, I fell in love with it. There's something about being a percussionist and being a drummer. I know it's going to sound cliche, but to me, it really is the heart of the band and the heart of the song. You know, take any song and pull out the drums, and I mean, it's still a song. Don't get me wrong, but there was just something special to me. Something, I hate to say controlling, but you kind of controlled the song. You controlled the vibe. You controlled the dance floor. You control a lot being a drummer, and it felt good and it felt natural, and it's never stopped feeling natural and right to me. It just felt like that's where I should be. So I'm not afraid to share my age. I'm 54 years old, and I've been doing this for 45 damn years. And I'm as passionate. Truly, I'm as passionate about it now as I was when I was 14. I'm still like exploring new music and listen. This week, I'm trying to get my COVID big butt out exercising more and more. And this week, I listened to Phoebe Bridgers, but then again, I also listened to Sergeant Pepper. So I'm listening to new stuff to turn myself on. I'm listening to old stuff to revisit turning myself on. And um, music is passion to me, and passion is life. So I think a lot of it is always just circled around. Even there are times where when times are exciting and celebratory, there's music. All right, or I gravitate towards music, and when times are less so, and things just aren't quite the way you want them to be, I gravitate towards music. I mean, what other kinds of things can opportunities you can think of where you always go there no matter what the emotion is? There's depressing music and there's celebratory music depending on your mood.
That was awesome. So, and you mentioned earlier, you were talking about the drummers that you found inspiring because they were more music or being more a musician than just drummer. Can you actually share us like, any particular, it's like you mentioned Ringo a lot. So
Right.
are there other
I
drummers?
mentioned Ringo because, yeah, Ringo was my, at 9, you're like Ringo, and you could, and at 9, you couldn't play like Ringo because I don't think I can play like Ringo now, but you could kind of simulate it, you can almost
Hmm.
kind of do it, Um, you, you know, um, I mentioned this in an interview a few weeks ago, and I'll mention it now because it really comes to mind. Um, in, in my high school days, everyone was Rush was the band. Rush,
Hmm.
and I love Rush, and I think Neil Peart is a phenom and somebody who, you know I put him up there with Buddy Rich. He's just like, he changed things. There's
Hmm.
certain records or certain musicians that change things. I think Buddy Rich changed the game. Ringo changed the game in '64. Moving pictures changed the game for a lot of people. But for me, what resonated to me back then was Stuart Copeland. And Stuart
Yes. Yeah.
Copeland, it was just like, even now I listen to, his hi-hat work, and no, he's not a surgeon like Neil Peart was, but he's so exacting at the same time. And there's something there's like controlled chaos with the way he plays. And I just think, I think he plays, talking about musical, I think he plays musical. And maybe it's his style, but maybe it's because it was a trio. Look how busy Neil was, and it was a trio.
Hmm.
And look at how busy Stuart Copeland it was or is, and it was a trio. Maybe that dictates a little bit. You have to fill some more holes than you normally wouldn't. And I'm not, necessarily a big fan. I'm a backbeat guy. I'm not a big fan of filling every hole in a song.
Hmm.
I think um, playing space is really really important. That I think silence is as important as the note that's being played. The spaces in between. But Stuart Copeland Stuart Copeland would be very simplistic, and then all of a sudden he just unleashes this manic fill, and then right back down to tight again. Like, I just love that. There was something insanely perfect about his playing, very musical. So I was so Stuart Copeland did a lot for me after Ringo, and then also I was into fusion big time. So I was digging. To me, fusion drummers are musical, whether it's Gary Husband or Cobham or Bill Bruford. I mean, they're just
Mm.
somebody like Bill Bruford. That's a musician. Sure, he plays drums, but he's a musician, and it's sad that he's retired, but still listening to some of those some of his Earthworks records, and like it's just phenomenal music that he created and he played on. I mean, at that point he was playing electronic drums, and a lot of his drums, they weren't toms, they were notes. So he was hitting a keyboard, in many ways. So approaching it musically.
No, that's awesome. Just like, yeah, it's those are definitely some of my, top drummers as well. Like I said, I'm a Gen Xer, so one of my favorite drummers was Will Calhoun from the group Living Color.
Yeah,
And
killer
then
drummer.
later on, like a drummer that worked with Peter Gabriel, Manu Katché.
Yeah,
Loved him.
yeah,
And so yeah,
yeah.
and luckily I was blessed enough there was one NAMM to where on the same stage was Will Calhoun and Stuart Copeland. And
Wow,
yeah, so it
wow.
was like, yeah, so the whole time I was like, it was just like I was 14 again. I was like, just to see my drum heroes sharing
Yeah,
the same
two.
stage and
Hey,
rocking it out.
and you
Yeah.
had you had two Sting drummers on the same stage.
I was like, oh,
And
it was absolute heaven. It was great.
yeah, and you mentioned Manu Katché, and another drummer that comes to mind in that vein is Omar Hakim, and I think those
I
two
know,
guys,
I know that name.
the word that the word that comes to mind for those two guys to me is fluid. When they play,
Yeah.
they aren't hitting a drum. Everything's just so everything's so fluid when they play. And I just love how they play, because it seems like they sort of lay upon you the note rather than hit it out. Manu Katché is just a fluid drummer, and Hakim, and Omar Hakim was the drummer on Sting's "Dream of the Blue Turtles."
Okay, so that's why I know. It's just like I know that name. Okay.
Yeah. Great drummer.
Oh, that is sweet. So, since we're talking about gigs, let's talk about yours. So, in your line of work and your joys, like I said, you've done the bar, gig, festival, various venues. Share if you're able to remember, because again, there's just days as to where everything's just a blur due to one reason or another. We're not going to talk about those details, but what is probably one of your favorite, best gig? And it doesn't mean it has to be like, you rocked out on stage, but something that just is like that favorite moment or loving moment? And if you can remember a gig just to where it doesn't mean you bombed, but but who doesn't love a good bomb story and know that,
Right.
hey, there's just those off days. Tomorrow will still come no matter what happens. And if anything, or even possibly a gig that makes you go, what just happened? It's like, am I
Right.
in the
Right.
Matrix type gig? So,
Hmm.
so
Okay.
any
Let me
like,
think. All right. So, I honestly, it doesn't sound, like, oh, I love all my gigs, but I've
yeah,
played so
yeah,
many cool gigs. But one gig that comes to mind, I had the pleasure of, and still do, had the pleasure of working with a fantastic blues artist by the name of Billy Thompson.
okay,
And Billy Thompson, Billy and I toured with his band for 5+ years, full time. Toured toured the world and elsewhere with Billy's band. But we were in San Diego, California, and we were playing a venue called Humphreys by the Bay, and they have a gig where the gig is where it's a huge venue where they have national acts play, but they also have a side club, and we
mm-hmm.
played a set in the side club. We played our first set as a full band. I think we were a quartet then, and then Billy and I ran over to the big stage, and Billy played guitar and I played cajon, which is fitting in our conversation. And we opened up for the Doobie Brothers, which was really like
Yeah,
Billy's actually played with the Doobie Brothers several times, but I got a chance to open up to this huge crowd of people in San Diego. Um, Packed our stuff up, ran back, ran back, and did the second set inside. And then after the show, all the folks came in from the Doobie Brothers show, and we were the guys who opened up. It was one of those days where the weather was perfect. Not that San Diego weather isn't always perfect, but
yeah.
the weather was perfect. We were running around like mad. Everything came off like clockwork, and it was just fun. It was just fun, and I think when I think of like a really cool gig, that gig comes to mind. Now, let me think here. I don't want to say a bad gig, but here's an interesting situation that was serendipitous.
Okay.
I was on my way. Um, I'm in Virginia, so I'm not far from Pennsylvania, and I was on my way to a small bar gig in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, and I had a little cocktail kit. I mean, eight, 18, 18 or 16 or 18-inch bass drum kind of thing, right?
Nice. Love
So I'm like,
those.
I'm gonna keep it simple. It was a small place, and like, we're gonna play like jazz funk kind of thing. I'm gonna keep it keep it simple. Plus, I don't want to carry a bunch of stuff. Almost said a bad word. And, so I had it in the back of my car, and it was actually, the kit was so small. I always had it in the back of my car. I didn't really care. Like, okay, if it gets ripped off, it's okay. I have good, ideas. Like, so I had this little kit in the back of my car. I was just going to use that for the gig. And I got a call that morning from a blues artist who was playing a blues festival and had an hour set in the afternoon. Say, hey, had a drummer issue. Can you play this festival? And I'm like, okay, let me think if I can coordinate this in my mind. And it just so happened that it was on the way to the night gig. I'm like, oh, cool, I can pull this off. So not that we all haven't had triples in a day, but I'll do this festival set, and then I'll run and do this little club and get this little venue in Gettysburg. And when I got there, I didn't know that much about the festival. Like, man,
Mhm.
this festival is huge, and there were national acts there, and the crowd was like one of those things where you look out and you're like, wow, there's like just heads of people, right?
Mhm.
And so I show up, hey, I'm the big swinging drummer here for my set, and the sound guy said, hey, where's your kit? I'm like, oh, I was told there was going to be backline, and backline kids means drums already there. And I'm like, oh, I thought I was told, for the gig there's going to be backline. Like, no, no, dude, you got to have drums. I'm like, holy smokes, what am I going to do? I'm like, I got this little kit, you know. So I pulled I pulled out this little, almost like a little toy kit, and was playing with this killer, rock and blues band. And I don't know, again, you're talking about serendipity. I don't know if it was moons aligned, amazing sound work, or I just like was lucky as a dog. But they mic'd that little kit and it rocked. This little, and I played this full out, open hi-hat, really
Mm.
rockin' blues on this little tiny drum kit. It sounded great, packed it all up, and then played this little venue with the same kit for maybe, 16 people that night. You never know, right?
Yeah, yeah. Those moments, it's like, yeah, the joys of just use what you got and make it rock, kids. That
Right.
just goes to show you just to where it's like I said, it was serendipitous, and it's like, well, this is what I got. So yeah, studio, or I guess not studio, but yeah, just using that engineering magic. So that's why the next lesson, always be really kind to your engineers and the sound crew. It's pretty
Oh,
much it's,
when you get to a sound check and and somebody is not very kind to those people, I'm like, number one, that's just bad karma,
yeah,
and what's
that's
wrong with you? Number two is, you're just begging for the waiter to spit in your food. Like, don't do that.
yeah, yeah.
And hey,
So
I remember one more. I'll share real quick. I play with
yeah,
this great blues band. It's a acoustic blues trio, and it's called Back Porch Blues. And it's the harmonica player is Jay Summerhour, just a virtuoso and an icon in blues music, and the guitar player singer is Eleanor Ellis, who again is she is an icon in acoustic country blues. And I had sound blocks for a particular song, real simple, right? The little handles fell off once, and I'm like, you know what? It was like in a theater, and the things were mic'd really well. So I did one of these jobs with my hands, and it sounded so cool. It became part of the act. So I don't even use now. I just that's what I play my crusty old dry hands for a song.
I assume if there's ever that day, if you're doing a gig in a very humid area, it's like, yeah, if you ever come to Indiana during the summer, it's like, yeah, bring lots of talcum powder because those things will not be dry.
Oh yeah, no, I
So,
feel you. I'm always afraid of those days. Like the days you want them dry, it's a humid fest, and the days you want it humid, it's dry as hell, right?
yeah, that is just the joys of like our world, right? Especially as percussionists. I mean, that's where unfortunately, it's like, I don't know about you, it's like I had to change all my drum heads to synthetics because I remember one day just in doing a gig at a it was like a Native American music like festival, and I was playing percussion, and I had to tune my conga heads like 3 times during like an hour set. And luckily, I had a quick ratchet because they would just play for like a couple songs, and then they would just go whoa, 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 whoa. I was
Ooh, yeah.
like, and I'm like looking at the front man's like, just keep on talking, keep on
Right,
talking.
right, right,
And I
right.
was like, I gotta tighten these up to a point where you're almost seeing like, here's the top of the head, and the ring is like all the way down here on trying to
Right,
tighten it back
right.
up. So
I
yeah,
get
so
it, man.
yeah, the magic of trying to deal with any and every climate that that we come across. And so also when I was like, speaking of like all these situations, what's some of the advice that you would like to share besides obviously always be nice to your sound crew? What's some
Oh,
advice you'd like to give to musicians, like or particularly even like new percussionists, at any level? I say young, but it could be young in age or young in practice. What's something that you would love to share for those getting into music or just even percussion, even if it be it for grins and giggles, they want to just have something where they can thwack it like it owes them money, or they want to, one day just, go out and actually have those moments to where they're playing in front of a, thousand, a thousand plus group or even a dozen, at a
yeah.
local pub.
That's a great question. I think two things come to mind that I think that are really important to new and old, because look, I've been doing this way too long, and I remind myself sometimes, because that there are days when the passion is work. It's like, oh, it's a job, and I have to remind myself, you're lucky, dude, to do this. And so the two bullet points that come to mind. The first one is um, play. Don't say that you're a drummer. Don't say that you're a guitar player. Don't say that you're a percussionist. Play percussion, and you don't have to. I kind of look at percussion kind of like meditation. that you never, there are folks who, who meditate all the time, and, they call it a practice because you never really particularly get to exactly what you want to be or where you want to go in meditation. You're constantly practicing it, and I think that's important as a percussionist. You're going to have good days and you're going to have bad days, and you're going to have days where your hands are two cinder blocks, and you're going to have days when they're fluid. I just you have to sort of keep on going. Don't let it discourage you. I mean, I think the more you play, the more you play, and when you find time and you can make the time, and making the time, I think, is important. I can always find something else to do than practice. Can't we all? I
Mhm.
need to change the filters in the heater. I need to, whatever, and those things need to be done. But, set time aside. You set time aside to eat, and you set time aside to exercise. Set time aside for yourself to practice your craft, whatever your craft is. I think that's important. And the second bullet point, I think, that I would really recommend someone who's new at it, or again, who's been doing it for a while, is just be nice. And it kind of ties into what we were talking about with the sound man. And it's not just
Yeah.
about the sound man. It's just about, um, I had my days. I admit it. When I was younger, where you think you're too cool
Yeah.
for school, or you're aloof because you know the Smiths and REM were aloof, and they leaned up against the wall and didn't care, so you acted that way too. But
Yeah.
um, I actually I want to be cool with people, and I think that um, a couple things. You don't have to be a virtuoso to get work. I'll be the first one to tell you I'm no virtuoso. I'm good enough to get by. I can get the job done. But I think what helps is that I'm prepared. I do my homework, and I'm nice to people, or try to be as nice as you can. The old adage of people want to work with the people they want to work with, and I think that's really important, because if I have, I think of myself, as a band leader, and I'm not, but like if I had to choose a, a guitar player or a bass player or whatever, like, okay, I have bass player A and bass player B. This guy's kind of an attitude. This guy, he may not be as good, but he's kind of fun to be around, and he gets the job done. I actually want good vibes on my. I want good vibes on my records. I want good vibes on the bandstand. I want good vibe. You know, I I've played with tons of musicians who are amazing at their craft, just amazing, but they're not really fun to be around, you know. And I've played with people who aren't virtuosos, but they're really really good, and I can't wait to be on the bandstand with them again, because they're just good, they're just good energy, and I wish and I hope that I can be that for the guitar players that hire me, and the bass players and the keyboard players, or whoever has me on their project, whether it's in the studio or live. I hope they want me to be there because they want me to be there, not because, oh, he was the last guy on my drum call list.
Or the infamous line, just like, you're on the top of my list. Oh, that's great. It was a short list. It's like, oh, okay.
Right,
Um,
right.
no, no, but you're right. And obviously, when it comes to virtuoso and nice guy, Don, you're the captain of that. So, so,
Thank you.
so, so, so yeah. So we know. I says like I think that's awesome. I just saw the fact of. I mean, it shows like some of the musicians and the people that have come up. Especially like, Don is like, as much as I jest, is like, that's so cool that he came on to support and show his love and enjoy the quick little quips and jokes that we've had. And it looks like you have somebody by the name of Tim Ross that says, "Always good vibes around you." So
Ah,
so
very
so it's
nice.
like you,
In fact, Tim's daughter Mara was the bassoonist on
oh,
my most recent release. So yeah, and in fact, I met Mara through Tim, because Tim would come see us see when I would play with different musicians, different guitar players. He was he would frequent the places we play. So connections, and and I was able to have Mara play on my track because Tim and I connected, and I met Mara through Tim, her dad, you know. So,
That's
you
awesome.
know, it's about being cool and networking, and it's not about the business of networking. It's just about being, you know, the networking just to grow your tribe, if you will.
Yeah, precisely. And like I said, like I'm only 42. It's like I said, I'm a young Gen Xer, but like you've been in longer than than I've been around. And as you mentioned about, your one, it seemed like your ultimate golden rule is to be nice, but you've been around to where there was the adage was almost, telling people to be a jerk in order to like make it. It's like, you were in that probably longer than me, even though I unfortunately witnessed that of just dealing with those like, okay, he's the best. Granted, he has an attitude, which we would call him something else that begins with the letter A,
Right.
but this is what we have and this is what people expect. And to where now we've kind of, it seems, how, let me ask you this, like, almost, I don't say that in closing, but because I definitely want you to share a couple other things, but what's your thoughts on just that, be it the revolution or the evolution of, yeah, you don't have to be the jerk. It's like to where now it's, as you mentioned, like, if you're on the road, if you're on tour, if you're working in the studio, the last person you want to be stuck with is a jerk, especially now. Is like, how have you seen that evolution in terms of seeing people just being like, okay, the tolerance for the jerk is pretty much gone the way of the dodo.
Right.
Have you?
I think two things. First of all, you know, a lot of those folks who weren't quite the easiest to work with or the coolest to be around aren't necessarily getting the calls for those tours or for those shows as much, or they just aren't in the business anymore. And you know, whether it was a choice or chosen for them, I don't know. That's their life to figure out. But you know, so I think there is an evolution in that, you know, the folks that aren't so cool to be around and good vibes to work with, um, kind of filter out because they get less calls, or you know, people hang less with them. And you know, it's funny, you mentioned about, you know, we kind of touched on certain bands from really, you know, from my era, and you know, you kind of probably had a little bit of that, um, you know, sort of that aloof poser, too cool for school. And
Yeah.
now, yeah, now you see, and I won't mention any band's names,
Hmm.
but you know, you see them out on tour, and their vibe is so different. You know, they just don't act that way anymore, and you can see that they're appreciative to still be appreciated. You know, and it kind of warms my heart. You know, like to go there and like I remember, you know, wearing black and you know, being too cool for school in my long black coat, watching this band where they were so aloof as well, and now they're just out there having fun, and it gives me hope that, you know what, there's hope for everybody, and that, you know, you can change who you are. You're still playing the same tunes, right? But you can change
Hmm.
your attitude. I remember seeing um, I won't say the name of the band. I remember seeing a band, a fusion band that got together, and the first time they hadn't been together for a long time, and they all got together, and I saw them, and they were playing the tunes, and it was just very serious, and you know, they delivered. It was fusion. They delivered. A year later, I saw the same band with a different guitar player. They just changed the guitar player, and they were all smiling, all having fun. The music oozed of fun, but it was still the same tunes. But it
Hmm.
shows you how, you know, vibes make a difference, and um, there's nothing wrong with laughing at yourself, and you know, you can be your own worst critic, but you know, do it with the do it with a little tongue in cheek too. You know, have fun with it all.
Nice.
It's all creativity, right?
Now, speaking of creativity, tell everybody, it's like as we close, how can people follow your creativity? So obviously the more welcoming way to stalk you. So where can people find you and be supportive and follow you, my friend?
Well, I am on Facebook as Eric Selby Music. I'm on Instagram. It's all Eric Selby Music. Twitter, Eric Selby Music. You can, I have a website, which is ericselby.com. And you can pick up my music that I have released on any of the music platforms on the interwebs that's out there right now. And I would be remiss not to mention that I have a new record coming out mid-year, probably shooting for the summer, probably June. But I
Nice.
don't want to commit to a date. But a new record coming out, and hopefully people will listen to it like they did the last one. And I'm looking forward to new projects.
That is so awesome. So Eric, thank you so much for making the time to join me for the Meet the Artist series. This was a lot of fun, my friend. Greatly appreciated. I'm just again, I'm loving the whole background, especially with the Beatles drum heads, the
Like
Lonely
that, yeah.
Hearts, and the like, and the I assume is that artwork from the Yellow Submarine. It's hard to tell. It's like I can't see
Oh,
the
the
one.
orange.
Yes.
The orange. That is actually the front bass drum head from a of a psychedelic rock band that I play with, and that band is called Fractal Cat. So I actually change out heads, and that goes on my front head when I play with them.
Nice.
Yeah,
It's like,
Adam, thanks so much for having me. This was a blast, and I appreciate you taking the time and having me on. And I appreciate all that you have done for me as an
oh,
artist relations rep for Tycoon. I mean, the Tycoon Percussions with me everywhere I go. So I appreciate you.
oh, heck, like says like, and getting to know you more has been a lot of fun, and you're definitely the poster child for pretty much their motto of being, made with heart and played with heart. So this has been a ton of fun to talk to you, and also seeing all your cool friends like showing their support for you as well. So everybody, thank you so much for joining Eric and me. Until the next time, everybody stay safe, stay healthy, and until the next time, keep the music going, my friends.